moment of silence The moment of silence we just shared marks the very moment 20 years ago that American Airlines Flight 11 flew into the North Tower of the World Trade Center. My name is Mike Lowe, and my daughter Sarah Elizabeth Lowe was a flight attendant on that plane. These 20 years have felt like both a long time and a short time, and as we recite the names of those we lost, my memory goes back to that terrible day when it felt like an evil specter had descended on our world. But it was also a time when many people acted above and beyond the ordinary. Beginning with the actions of the flight crews, like Sarah, and the passengers on the 4 flights, the individuals in the towers, the professionals of the fire and police, and later the volunteers who helped work on the pile sensitive to recovering our loved ones' remains. They helped pull us through the darkest days of our lives. In the last 20 years, my family and I have at times known unbearable sorrow and disbelief about the lives that would never be. Years we have filled with speaking out on my daughter's behalf and calling on many more precautions, and also for the history to be remembered not as numbers and a date, but the faces of ordinary people who looked a lot like Sarah. At the first memorial ceremony, my wife Bobby and I stood here with thousands of family members, right in the midst of a gray and black world of destroyed buildings. Today, this is a quiet place of memory. The gleaming 9/11 Museum holds a sacred repository for our loved ones' remains, and the still brightening stories of all the sons and daughters, the siblings, husbands and wives, grandparents, and friends. As we carry these 20 years forward, I find sustenance in a continuing appreciation for all of those who rose to be more than ordinary people, and a father's pride in his daughter's selfless acts in the last moments of her life, acting with heroic calm to help those in the air and those on the ground, a legacy from Sarah that burns like an eternal flame.
Gordon M. Amos, Jr.
Edelmiro Abad.
Marie Rose Abad.
Andrew Anthony Abate.
Vincent Paul Abate.
Lawrence Christopher Abel.
Alana Abraham.
William F. Abrahamson.
Richard Anthony Aceto.
Heinrich Bernard Ackerman.
Paul Aquaviva.
Christian Adams.
Donald Leroy Adams.
Patrick Adams.
Shannon Lewis Adams.
Stephen George Adams.
Ignatius Udo Adanga.
Christy A. Adamo.
Terrence Edward Adderley, Jr.
Sophia B. Otto.
Lee Adler.
Daniel Thomas Aflito.
Emmanuel Akwazi Afwakwa.
Alok Agarwal.
Mukul Kumar Agarwala.
Joseph Agnello.
David Scott Agnes.
João Alberto da Fonseca Aguiar, Jr.
Brian G. Ahern.
Jeremiah Joseph Ahern.
Joanne Marie Aladiotis.
Sabir Ahmed.
Terrence Andre Aiken.
Godwin O. Ajala.
Trudy M. Alagero,
Andrew Alameno,
Margaret Ann Alario,
Gary M. Albero,
John Leslie Albert,
Peter Craig Alderman,
and my brother, Vladimir Savinkin. Vladik, we all love and miss you so much. Thank you for answering our prayers and showing us that you're always with us. I look at your nephew's face, and I see you in his face sometimes, and I cherish those moments. 20 years have gone by, and so much has changed in our lives, but the memory of you and keeping you close to us and cherishing the gift of your life never changes and never will. Мы тебя очень любим, Владик, и мы тебя помним. Передай папе привет.
and my father, Edward Joseph Papa. Dad, we miss you every day. Our greatest gifts are your beautiful grandchildren. They embody your kind spirit, warm heart, loving nature, and zest for life. They are a daily reminder that your legacy lives on. We love you, Dad.
Jacqueline Delaney Alderidge Frederick,
David D. Alger,
Ernest Alakakos,
Edward L. Allegretto,
Eric Allen,
Joseph Ryan Allen,
Richard Dennis Allen,
Richard L. Allen,
Christopher E. Allingham,
Anna S. W. Allison,
Janet Marie Alonso,
Anthony Alvarado,
Antonio Javier Alvarez,
Victoria Alvarez Brito,
Telmo E. Alvier,
Caesar Amaranto Alviar,
Tariq Amanula,
Angelo Amaranto,
James M. Amato,
Joseph Amatuccio,
Paul W. Ambrose,
Christopher Charles Amoroso,
Craig Scott Amundsen,
Kazuhiro Anai,
Callisto Anaya Jr.,
Joseph P. Anshundia,
Kermit Charles Anderson,
Yvette Constance Anderson,
John Jack Andriakio,
Michael Rourke Andrews,
Jean Ann Andruki,
C. Nia Ang,
Joseph Angelini Sr.,
Joseph John Angelini Jr.,
David Lawrence Angel,
Mary Lynn Edwards Angel,
Laura Angeletta,
Doreen J. Angersani,
Lorraine Antigua,
Sima David Aoima,
Ronald Philip Caloper, and my husband, Joseph Rena Jr.
and my uncle James Francis Quinn.
Joe, we love and miss you more than you could ever imagine. Our son is the spitting image of you. He lights up my world every day. I see you in everything that he does, and I know that you see us because I feel you. Continue to watch over us and your family. 20 years feels like an eternity, but yet it still feels like yesterday. Until we meet again, my love, rest in peace.
Peter Paul Apollo,
Faustino Apostle Jr.,
Frank Thomas Aquilino,
Patrick Michael Alyanras,
David Gregory Archer,
Michael George Archinsky,
Louis Arena,
Barbara Jean Aristoghi,
Adam P. Arias,
Michael Armstrong,
Jack Charles Aaron,
Joshua Ton Aaron,
Richard Avery Aaron now,
Myra Joy Harrison,
Japhet Jesse Aria,
Carl Francis Azaro,
Michael A. Asiak,
Mike Thomas J. Ashton,
Janice Marie Ashley,
Greg A. Atlas,
Manuel O. Isinembe,
James Otterfield,
Gerald Thomas Atwood,
Ezra Avales,
Louis F. Aversano Jr.,
Arlene T. Bacatadas,
Sandy Ayala,
John Bagagliardo,
Eustace Bacchus, Jane Ellen Basler,
Robert J. Bellwater,
Andrew J. Bailey,
Britt T. Bailey,
Garnet Ace Bailey,
Tatiana Balalinsky,
Michael S. Baksh,
Sharon M. Balcom,
Michael Andrew Bain,
Catherine Bantis,
and my uncle, firefighter Christopher Michael Mazzillo. I know you're with us every day watching over us, and even though I never met you in person, I still miss you a lot. Mom always tells me all the crazy fun things you did, and I'm sure if you were here, I'd probably be doing them with you. Thank you for being the best guardian angel and for sending us Killian. We know he can see you. Mom also says I have your lovable charm and fearlessness. Not only do I have your charm, but I'm honored to have your name as my middle name. You, Pop-Up, and Dad have inspired me to follow in your footsteps and become a firefighter too. We hope you will continue to watch over us, and keep us healthy and safe. We love you so much, Uncle Chris.
and my sister Cecilia Elizabeth Richard Lawson. Dear Cece, it's been 20 years since you left us. I remember this day as if it was yesterday. You are greatly missed by our mother, your sisters, your nieces, your nephews. It was such a sad day on September 11th. I remember you working at the Pentagon, and when they told us an airplane had attacked the Pentagon, I couldn't believe it. From the building of where I worked at EPA, I could see the smoke. And I couldn't believe that you're gone. I just want to say I love you, and we miss you. Thank you so much.
Gerard Baptiste,
Walter Baran,
Gerard A. Barbera,
Paul Vincent Barbero,
James William Barbella,
Victor Daniel Barbosa,
Christine Jana Barbuto,
Colleen Ann Barkow,
David Michael Barkway,
Matthew Barnes,
Melissa Rose Barnes,
Sheila Patricia Barnes,
Evan J. Barron,
Renee Barrett Arjun,
Arthur Thaddeus Barry,
Diane G. Barry,
Maurice Vincent Barry,
Scott D. Bart,
Carlton W. Bartels,
Guy Bartzy,
Ina B. Basina,
Alicia Christine Burton Basmajan,
Kenneth William Basnicki,
Stephen Joseph Bates,
Paul James Battaglia,
W. David Bauer,
Ivan Luis Carpio Bautista,
Marlon Capito Bautista,
Mark Lawrence Bavis,
Jasper Baxter,
Lorraine G. Bay,
Michelle Beal,
Todd M. Beamer,
Paul Frederick Bettini,
Jane S. Beatty,
Alan Anthony Bevan,
Lawrence Ira Beck,
Manette Marie Beckles,
Carl John Bedigian,
Michael Ernest Beekman,
and my uncle Thomas F. Swift. We love you and we miss you. You live on in our hearts and the hearts and minds of your family, and we think about you every day, and I can't wait to meet you again.
and my brother TJ Hargrave, who we continue to miss and love every day. The world is a lesser place without him.
Hannah A. Bear,
Max J. Bilkey,
Yelena Belilovsky,
Nina Patrice Bell,
Debbie S. Bellows,
Stephen Elliott Belson,
Paul M. Benedetti,
Denise Lenore Benedetto,
Brian Craig Bennett,
Eric L. Bennett,
Oliver Bennett,
Margaret L. Benson,
Dominic J. Berardi,
James Patrick Berger,
Stephen Howard Berger,
John P. Bergen,
Alvin Bergson,
Daniel David Bergstein,
Graham Andrew Berkeley,
Michael J. Berkeley,
Donna M. Bernards,
David W. Bernard,
May God bless our fallen brothers and sisters, their families, their friends, and their loved ones. He says, I'll see you in my dreams. The road is long and seeming without end. Days go on, but I'll remember you, my friend. And though you're gone, and my heart's been emptied, it seems, I'll see you in my dreams. I got your guitar by my bed, all your favorite records and all the books that you read. And though my soul feels like it's been split at the seams, I'll see you in my dreams. I'll see you in my dreams, when all our summers have come to an end. I'll see you in my dreams. We'll meet and live and laugh again. I'll see you in my dreams. Yeah, up around the river bend, for death is not the end. 'Cause I'll see you in my dreams. and I'll see you in my dreams. You in my, I'll see you in my dreams.
William H. Bernstein.
David M. Beret.
David Shelby Berry.
Joseph John Berry.
William Reed Bethke.
Yanene Beetrue.
Timothy D. Betterly.
Carolyn Mayer Bugh.
Edward Frank B.A.
Paul Michael Bear.
Anil Tahilram Bhavani.
Bella J. Buchan.
Shimi D. Beaglesen.
Peter Alexander Bielfeld.
William G. Biggert.
Brian Eugene Bilcher.
Mark Bingham.
Carl Vincent Beanie.
And my uncle, firefighter Joseph Patrick Henry from Ladder Company 21. I wish I had the chance to meet you, Uncle Joey. I heard you were a great person.
And my husband, Thomas Michael Kelly. We love you and we miss you.
Gary Eugene Bird.
Joshua David Birnbaum.
George John Bishop.
Chris Romeo Bishuntat.
Jeffrey Donald Bittner.
Albert Baliwa Blackman Jr.
Christopher Joseph Blackwell.
Carrie Rosetta Blackburn.
Susan Leigh Blair.
Harry Blanding Jr.
Janice Lee Blaney.
Craig Michael Blass.
Rita Blau.
Richard Middleton Blood Jr.
Michael Andrew Bacardi.
John Paul Bacci.
Michael L. Bocchino.
Susan N. Bocchino.
Dara Francis Bodley.
Bruce Douglas Bohm.
Mary Catherine Murphy Bofa.
Nicholas Andrew Bogdan.
Darren Christopher Bohan.
Lawrence Francis Bousseau.
Vincent M. Boland Jr.
Tori Hamzavi Balorchi.
Alan Bondarenko.
Andre Bonhair Jr.
Colin Arthur Bonnet.
Frank J. Bonomo.
Yvonne Lucia Bonamo.
Sean Booker Sr.
Kelly Ann Booms.
Canfield D. Boone.
Mary Jane Booth.
Sherry Ann Bordeaux.
Christine Bornanabe.
Jerry J. Borg.
Martin Michael Borchevsky.
Richard Edward Bosco.
And my father, Thomas J. Fisher. We love you and miss you.
And my brother and friend, James Marcel Cartier. In remembrance, American Brotherhood MC remembers Lester V. Marino, Kenneth T. Watson, Tommy Ashton, and all the other lives taken away too early.
Klaus Bota.
Carol Marie Bouchard.
J. Howard Bolton.
Francisco Eligio Bordier.
Thomas Harold Bowden Jr.
Donna M. Bowen.
Kimberly S. Bowers.
Veronique Nicole Bowers.
Larry Bowman.
Sean Edward Bauman. Jr.,
Kevin L. Bowser,
Gary R. Box,
Gennady Boyarsky,
Pamela Boyce,
Alan P. Boyle,
Michael Boyle,
Alfred J. Braca,
Sandra Canati Grace,
Kevin Hugh Brecken,
Sandy Waugh Bradshaw,
David Brian Brady,
Alexander Berginski,
Nicholas W. Brandenmark,
Daniel Raymond Grandhorse,
David Reed Gamboa Bradhorse,
Michelle Renee Bratton,
Patrice Brout,
Lydia Estelle Bravo,
Ronald Michael Breitweiser,
Edward A. Brennan III,
Frank H. Brennan,
Michael E. Brennan,
Peter Brennan,
Thomas Moore Brennan,
Daniel J. Russell,
Gary Lee Wright,
Jonathan Eric Riley,
Mark A. Grissman,
Paul Gary Bristow,
Marion R. Britton,
and my grandfather Cesar Amaranto Alvear. We love you so much. Thank you for watching over us. We miss you. And please convince Mommy to get us a husky someday. Love you.
and my father, Jason Matthew Coffey, and my grandfather, Daniel Michael Coffey. Even though I never got the chance to meet either of you, I know there are two angels in heaven watching over me and our family. We all love you so much.
Mark Francis Broderick,
Herman Charles Broghammer,
Keith A. Broomfield,
Bernard C. Brown II,
Janice J. Louise Brown,
Lloyd Stanford Brown,
Patrick John Brown,
Patina B. Brown Rayburn,
Mark Bruce,
Richard George Bruhert,
Andrew Brunn,
Vincent Edward Brunton,
Ronald Booka,
Brandon J. Buchanan,
Greg J. Buck,
Dennis Buckley,
Nancy Claire Boishet,
Patrick Joseph Booths,
John Edward Bulaga Jr.,
Stephen Bruce Boonen,
Christopher L. Burford,
Matthew J. Burke,
Thomas Daniel Burke,
William Francis Burke, Jr.,
Charles F. Burlingame III,
Thomas E. Burnett, Jr.,
Donald J. Burns,
Kathleen Ann Burns,
Keith James Burns,
John Patrick Burnside,
Irina Buslow,
Milton G. Bustillo,
Thomas M. Butler,
Patrick Dennis Byrne,
Timothy G. Byrne,
Daniel M. Caballero,
Jesus Neptali Cabezas,
Lillian Caceres,
Brian Joseph Cachia,
Stephen Dennis Cafiero, Jr.,
and my father, Michael Angel Trinidad.
and
We love you. We miss you. There's so many events that I wish you were a part of, like my wedding or Timmy making you a grandfather. We hope that you're proud of us, and please look after me and the rest of the family.
and my father, Philip David Miller. We love and miss you. You'll always be in our hearts. I wish you were here to see your 3 beautiful grandchildren grow up. But in my heart, I know that you're watching over us.
Richard Michael Caggiano,
Cecile Maria Cagicola,
John Brett Cahill,
Michael John Cahill,
George C. Kane,
Thomas Joseph Cahill,
Joseph M. Calandrillo,
Salvatore B. Calabro,
Edward Calderon,
Philip V. Calcano,
Kenneth Marcus Caldwell,
Jose O. Caldron Olmedo,
Felix Bobby Caliste,
Dominic E. Kalia,
Liam Callahan,
Francis Joseph Callahan,
Gino Luigi Calvi,
Suzanne M. Cali,
Michael F. Camarata,
Rocco Camage,
Jeffrey Thomas Campbell,
David Odie Campbell,
Sandra Patricia Campbell,
Robert Arthur Campbell,
John A. Candela,
Sheen Thomas Canavan,
Stephen J. Cangelosi,
Vincent A. Cangelosi,
Brian Canizaro,
Lisa Bella Canava,
Louis Anthony Caparici,
Michael R. Canty,
James Christopher Cappers,
Jonathan Neff Capello,
Jose Manuel Cardona,
Richard Michael Caproni,
Edward Carlino,
Dennis M. Carey Sr.,
and my big brother. We love we love and miss you every day. You will never be forgotten. Robert David Peraza.
and my uncle Gary Shamai. I love you and wish you were here. My siblings and I will be a beacon of your memory for many years to come.
David G. Carlone.
Rosemary C. Carlson.
Mark Stephen Carney.
Joyce Ann Carpenetto.
Jeremy Kaz Carrington.
Michael T. Carroll.
Peter J. Carroll.
James Joseph Carson, Jr.
Christopher Mikhail Kartzingen.
Angeline C. Carter.
James Marcel Cartier.
Sharon Ann Carver.
Vivian Kasoldik.
John Francis Casaza.
Paul Regan Cassio.
Neely Ann Heffernan Casey.
William Joseph Cashman.
Thomas Anthony Casoria.
William Otto Casper.
Alejandro Castaño.
Arcelia Castillo.
Leonard M. Castriano.
Jose Ramon Castro.
William E. Caswell.
Richard G. Cattarelli.
Christopher Sean Caton.
Robert John Caulfield.
Mary Teresa Caulfield.
Judson Cavalier.
Michael Joseph Colley.
Jason David Kane.
Juan Armando Ceballos.
Marcia G. Cecil Carter.
Jason Michael Cefalu.
Thomas Joseph Selleck.
Anna Mercedes Centeno.
Joni Sesta.
John J. Chada.
Jeffrey Mark Chernoff.
Swarna Chalasani.
And my uncle Robert G. McElvain. Although I wasn't lucky enough to have met you, your spirit lives on in myself, my brother and sisters, and all those who loved you. I am honored to carry your name, and I am living proof that life loves on.
And my father, Daniel R. Nolan.
William A. Chalkoff.
Eli Challow.
Charles Lawrence Chan.
Mandy Chang.
Rosa Maria Chapa.
Mark Lawrence Charette.
David M. Charlebois.
Gregorio Manuel Chavez.
Pedro Francisco Checo.
Douglas Macmillan Cherry,
Stephen Patrick Cherry,
Vernon Paul Cherry,
Nestor Julio Chevalier Jr.,
Swede Joseph Chevalier,
Alexander H. Chiang,
Dorothy J. Chicharo,
Luis Alfonso Chimbo,
Robert Chin,
Eddie Wing-Wei Ching,
Nicholas Paul Chiofalo,
John G. Tripura,
Peter A. Churchirillo,
Catherine Ellen Chirls,
Kayung Hee Casey Cho,
Abdul K. Chowdhury,
Mohammed Salahuddin Chowdhury,
Kirsten Lael Christoph,
Pamela Chu,
Stephen Paul Chutnick,
Wei Ching Chung,
Christopher Ciaffredini,
Alex F. Saccone,
Francis Ann Salenti,
Elaine Silo,
Edna Cintron,
Nestor Andre Cintron III,
Robert D. Siri Sr.,
Juan Pablo Cisneros,
Benjamin Keith Clark,
Eugene Clark,
and my husband, Dennis Michael Edwards. As I stand here today, the only thing I can say for certain is that despite the tremendous pain and heartache of losing you, time did not stand still for 1 second over the past 20 years. The best part of those 20 years was having our daughter, Alexa, by my side. Our then 2-year-old baby is now a grown woman and graduate of UNC Chapel Hill. Alexa is your legacy here on earth. She embodies all the good in you. Her green eyes, dimpled chin, kind heart, love of music, passion for people, willingness to help others, and enthusiastic love for life remind me of you each and every day. She even tilts her head and scratches the head the way you do, and she never even saw you do it. You missed every single milestone in her life over the past 2 decades, but we continue to move forward with only love in our hearts. Our family and friends continue to keep your memory alive, and with endless stories and reemergence of old pictures. You always carried the good torch, shining brightly wherever you went, and Alexa will carry it for you too. Thank you for the greatest gift I've ever received from anyone. For as long as we live, people will know your name and honor your memory. We love you, Den, and we love you, Alexa Marie.
and my uncle, firefighter Peter Alexander Bielfeld. We love you and we miss you, Uncle Peter. Thank you for being my godfather, and thank you for protecting this country.
Gregory Allen Clark,
Manny Leroy Clark,
Sarah M. Clark,
Thomas R. Clark,
Christopher Robert Clark,
Donna Marie Clark,
Michael J. Clark,
Saria Rachel Emma Clark,
Kevin Francis Cleary,
James D. Clear,
Jeffrey W. Cloud,
Susan Marie Klein,
Stephen Coakley,
Jeffrey Allen Cole,
Patricia A. Cody,
Daniel Michael Coffey,
Jason Matthew Coffey,
Florence G. Cohen,
Kevin S. Cohen,
Anthony Joseph Coladonato,
Mark Joseph Caleo,
Stephen J. Caleo,
Christopher Michael Colasanti,
Kevin Nathaniel Colbert,
Michelle P. Colbert,
Keith E. Coleman,
Scott Thomas Coleman,
Robert D. Colon,
Liam Joseph Calhoun,
Robert D. Jean Marie Collin,
Robert J. Call,
Joseph Kent Collison,
John Michael Collins,
Patricia Malia Kolodner,
Thomas Joseph Collins,
Sol E. Cohen.
Jeffrey Dwayne Coleman,
I'm done.
and my uncle, Brian Christopher Novotny, whose tie I am wearing today proudly.
And my aunts, Maria Teresa Concepcion Santillan and Judy Santillan Fernandez. Tita Maritas, from the pictures and stories I've heard and seen, I know how beautiful you were. After 20 years, you are now reunited with Lola and Lolo, who passed away last year. Please be our guardian angel. We will never forget, and we will always remember you. God bless America.
Ronald Edward Comer.
Jamie Concepcion.
Albert Conte.
Denise Connolly.
Susan P. Conlon.
Margaret Mary Connor.
Cynthia Marie Lice Connolly.
John E. Connolly, Jr.
James Lee Connor.
Jonathan M. Connors.
Kevin Patrick Connors.
Kevin F. Conroy.
Brenda E. Conway.
Dennis Michael Cook.
Helen D. Cook.
Jeffrey W. Coombs.
John A. Cooper.
Julian T. Cooper.
Joseph John Copo, Jr.
Gerard J. Coppola.
Joseph Albert Corpet.
John J. Corcoran III.
Alejandro Cordero.
Robert Joseph Cordis.
Ruben D. Correa.
Danny A. Correa Gutierrez.
Georgian Rose Corrigan.
James J. Corrigan.
Carlos Cortez Rodriguez.
Kevin Michael Cosgrove.
Dolores Marie Costa.
Digna Alexandra Costanza.
Charles Gregory Costello, Jr.
Michael S. Costello.
Asia S. Cottom.
Conrad Kofi Couture, Sr.
Martin John Coughlin.
John G. Coughlin.
Timothy J. Coughlin.
James E. Cove.
And my aunt, Anna Mercedes Centeno. We miss you, we love you, and you've been an inspiration to our lives, especially in my life. And I see more Grandma, your face and Grandma's face, especially throughout the years. Your smile will always stay in us, and you will forever live in us. We miss you and love you.
And my sister-in-law, Colleen Ann DeLockery. Col, can't believe it's been 20 years. Your children, Amanda and Michael, are living your legacy. They are walking in your footsteps and making a difference in this world. Your amazing husband, Jay, has been with them every step of the way these past 20 years. And we talk about you all the time in our all events when we're all together as family. We remember you all the time, and we love and miss you. Thank you for watching over us.
Andre Colin Cox.
Frederick John Cox.
James Raymond Coyle.
Michelle Coyle Yulo.
Christopher Seaton Kramer.
Eric A. Cranford.
Denise Elizabeth Krant.
James Leslie Crawford Jr.
Robert James Crawford.
Tara Kathleen Creamer.
Joanne Mary Cregan.
Lucia Crefasi.
John A. Creasy.
Daniel Hal Chrisman.
Dennis A. Cross.
Kevin R. Carodi.
Thomas G. Crotty.
John R. Crow.
Wells Remy Crowther.
Robert L. Crookshank.
John Robert Cruz.
Grace Allegre Cua.
Kenneth John Cubas.
Francisco Cruz Cubero.
Thelma Cuccinello.
Richard Joseph Cudina.
Neil James Cudmore.
Thomas Patrick Cullen III.
Joan Cullinan.
Joyce Rose Cummings.
Brian Thomas Cummins.
Michael Joseph Cunningham.
Robert Curatolo.
Lawrence Damian Curia.
Paul Dario Curioli.
Patrick Joseph Curryvan.
Beverly L. Curry.
Andrew Peter Charles Curry Green.
Michael Sean Curtin.
Patricia Cushning.
And my mother, Barbara Keating, a passenger on American Airlines Flight 11. She devoted much of her life to serving marginalized communities, such as those with physical and intellectual disabilities. She was the director of a Big Brother, Big Sister chapter in Massachusetts. And after surviving cancer twice, she spent her golden years driving cancer patients to their medical appointments and volunteered daily in her church in Palm Springs. Mom, the world was a better place with you in it, and you're still missed after 20 years by your children and your grandchildren, of whom you'd be very proud.
And my father, Robert D.W. Higley II. Dad, it has been 20 years since you've been gone, and there's nothing I can say more than I miss goofing off with you. I miss your jokes, and nothing more makes me smile than the light I see in the smile of my daughter, who reminds me so much of you. We love and miss you, and I still wish you could be here to see how amazing and proud we're making you to be.
Gavin Cushnig.
Caleb Aaron Dack.
Carlos S. DaCosta.
Jason M. Dahl.
Brian Paul Dale.
John Dallara.
Vincent Gerard DiMatteo.
Thomas A. Damaskinos.
Jack L. D'Ambrosi Jr.
Janine Damiani Jones.
Manuel Joa Damota.
Patrick W. Danahy.
Mary D'Antoni.
Vincent G. Dans.
Dwight Donald Darcy.
Elizabeth Ann Darling.
Annette Andrea Dadaram.
Edward A. Diatri.
Michael D. Doria.
Lawrence Davidson.
Michael Allen Davidson.
Scott Matthew Davidson.
Titus Davidson.
Nirka Davila.
Ada M. Davis.
Clinton Davis Sr.
Wayne Terrill Davis.
Anthony Richard Dawson.
Calvin Dawson.
Edward James Day.
William Thomas Dean.
Robert J. DeAngelis Jr.
Thomas Patrick DeAngelis.
Dorothy Alma de Araujo.
Ana Gloria Hocasangre de Barrera.
Tara E. Debeck.
James D. Debonier.
Anna M. Debin.
James V. de Blase Jr.
Jesarel Malabuyak de Chavez.
And my little brother, Walter A. Batuza Jr. We love you and miss you every day, Walter. Mom and Sal are still dancing in the kitchen. Last night, in fact, 94 and 92. You would be so proud of your boys. Walter, Jesse, and Nico. Denise has become Superwoman. What she did for these boys and herself, she's going to college now, Walt. Your boys would make you so proud. They each have a bit of your personality, and you'll never be missed. Love you, bro.
And my father, Daniel J. Brethel, captain of Ladder 24, FDNY. We love and miss you every day.
My name is Anthula Katsimatidis. My brother John worked on the 104th floor of Tower 1. When I look back on these last 20 years, I find myself thinking about September 12th and everything that happened after that, when thousands of us became members of a club that we never signed up for. And no idea of what to do next, except to cry, right? But then something unexpected happened. An unlimited amount of kindness kept pouring in to each of us, from friends and strangers. The whole country seemed to put its arm around us. And that lent me just enough strength to get up the next day, and the day after that, and the day after that. And I realized that all this kindness and giving reminded me of my brother, my larger-than-life, live out loud big brother who loved to make people laugh, and he was always there whenever something was needed. I loved and admired those things about him, and I began to emulate them. And it made me feel like I was picking up a baton that he had left for me. I started working with the 9/11 families, helping them navigate the emotional process of thinking about the memorial and connecting their concerns with the staff and designers and officials. John used to say, "Thula, you gotta have fun. You gotta be daring with your life." And with that, I discovered a zest for acting. It was a new direction for me, a way to express creatively all that I felt inside, a way for me to share stories. Everything I was doing gave me the feeling that my brother Johnny was with me. You got this, kid. It takes a really long time to figure out who you are and who you were meant to be. And all of us had to find new ways to get there. But if I had given up, oh boy, my brother would have been so mad at me. His loss helped shape me into who I am today. And I know it's made me a better person. I came here, yes, with tears, but also a really happy heart to say that over the last 20 years, I have learned to live out loud just the way my brother taught me.
When you walk
Gerald F. DeConto,
Simon Marash DeVukash,
Jason Christopher DeFazio,
David A. DeFio,
Jennifer DeJesus,
Monique Effie DeJesus,
Narita DeJesus,
Emmy De La Pina,
Donald Arthur De La Pena,
Azucena Maria De La Torre,
Vito Joseph DeLeo,
Danielle Ann Deli,
Andrea Della Bella,
Joseph A. Della Pietra,
Palmina Delegati,
Colleen Ann Dollery,
Joseph DeLuca,
Manuel Del Valle Jr.,
Francis Albert DiMartini,
Anthony Demos,
Martin DeMeo,
Francis Deming,
Carol Keys Demitz,
Kevin Dennis,
Thomas Francis Dennis Sr.,
Jean C. De Palma,
Jose Nicholas De Pena,
Robert John DeRaney,
Michael DiRienzo,
David Paul DeRubio,
Jamal Legues DeSantis,
Christian Louis DeSimone,
Edward DeSimone III,
Andrew J. Desperito,
Michael Jude D'Esposito,
Cindy Ann Duell,
Melanie Louise DeVere,
Jerry DeVito,
Robert P. DeVitt Jr.,
and my brother, Peter Burton Hansen, my sister-in-law, Sue Kim Hansen, and my niece, Christine Lee Hansen. We miss you. We love you more than you'll ever know, and thank you for being our guardian angels.
and my uncle, FDNY Battalion Chief Oreo Joseph Palmer. 20 years and we don't miss you any less. You and Aunt Debbie are our angels. You were truly too good for this world, and we're lucky to have known you.
Dennis Lawrence Devlin,
Gerard P. Dewan,
Sulamanali Kasamali Danani,
Michael Louis D'Agostino,
Matthew Diaz,
Nancy Diaz,
Obdulio Ruiz Diaz,
Michael A. Diaz Piedra III,
Judith Burkus Diaz Sierra,
Patricia Florence DiChiaro,
Rodney Dickens,
Jerry D. Dickerson,
Joseph Dermot Dickey Jr.,
Lawrence Patrick Dickinson,
Michael D. Deal,
John DeFato,
Vincent Francis DeFazio,
Carl Anthony DeFranco,
Donald Joseph DeFranco,
John DiGiovanni,
Eddie A. Dillard,
Deborah Ann DiMartino,
David DeMiglio,
Stephen Patrick Domino,
William John Dimling,
Marissa DiNardo Short,
Christopher Moore Dincuff,
Jeffrey Mark Dingle,
Raina Sam Deneau,
Anthony Dionisio,
George DiPasquale,
Joseph D. Pilato,
Douglas Frank DiStefano,
Donald Americo Di Tullio,
Ramsey A. Dewani,
Johnny Doctor Jr.,
John Joseph Doherty,
Melissa Candida Doy,
Brendan Dolan,
Robert E. Dolan Jr.,
and my father, Alfred Todd Ranke. 20 years ago today, God called you home, Dad, and our lives have changed from day to day since then, but the love and memory of you shall never pass away. There is not enough time to explain the incredible man you were. You inspire me to be the parent that I am to Trey. And I thank God for the years that I had with you. Dad, may your heart continue to beat through those that are still here. And may all the good that you have done be your legacy that continues to live on. God bless you all, and God bless America.
And my sister, my beloved sister Diane Gladstone. Your extended family misses you and loves you every day. Your nieces miss you. Your great nephews and great niece miss you and will love you forever.
Ready? Neil Matthew Dollard.
James Domanico.
Belinda Pascua Domingo.
Alberto Dominguez.
Carlos Dominguez.
Jerome Mark Patrick Dominguez.
Kevin W. Donnelly.
Jacqueline Donovan.
William H. Donovan.
Stephen Scott Dorff.
Thomas Dowd.
Kevin Christopher Dowdell.
Mary Yolanda Dowling.
Raymond Matthew Downey Sr.
Frank Joseph Doyle.
Joseph Michael Doyle.
Randall Drake.
Patrick Joseph Driscoll.
Stephen Patrick Driscoll.
Charles A. Dross III.
Myrna A. Duarte.
Luke A. Dudek.
Christopher Michael Duffy.
Gerard J. Duffy.
Michael Joseph Duffy.
Thomas W. Duffy.
Antoinette Duger.
Jackie Sayed Dugan.
Safri Ducat.
Patrick Dunn.
Lydia Gail Dunn Jones.
Christopher Joseph Dunn.
Richard Anthony Dunstan.
Patrick Thomas Dwyer.
Joseph Anthony Akobachi.
John Bruce Eagleson.
Edward T. Earhart.
Robert Douglas Eaton.
Dean Philip Eberling.
Margaret Ruth Echterman.
And my brother, Ronald Philip Klepfer, police officer, emergency service, truck 7. Miss you, love you.
And my uncle, Martín Morales Empaltecatl. Tío, aún te extrañamos. En la familia aún contamos tus historias y nos gusta recordarte como el gran ser humano que fuiste. Y aunque han pasado 20 años desde que no estás con nosotros, sabemos que no te perdimos. Ganamos un ángel.
Paul Robert Ekna.
Constantine Economos.
Barbara G. Edwards.
Dennis Michael Edwards.
Michael Hardy Edwards.
Christine Egan.
Lisa Aaron Egan.
Martin J. Egan Jr.
Michael Egan.
Samantha Martin Egan.
Carol Egger.
Lisa Karen Ehrlich.
John Ernst Eichler.
Eric Adam Eisenberg.
Daphne Ferlinda Elder.
Michael J. Alferis.
Mark Joseph Ellis.
Valerie Silver Ellis.
Albert Alfie William Elmery.
Robert R. Elseth.
Edgar Hendricks Emery Jr.
Doris Sukyun Eng.
Christopher Epps.
Ulf Ram Erickson.
Erwin L. Erker.
William John Irwin.
Sarah Ali Escarcega.
Jose Espinal.
Fanny Espinoza.
Billy Scoop Esposito.
Bridget Ann Esposito.
Francis Esposito.
Michael A. Esposito.
Ruben Esquilin Jr.
Sadie Et.
Barbara G. Etzold.
Eric Brian Evans.
Robert Edward Evans.
Meredith Emily June Ewert.
Catherine K. Fagan.
And my uncle, Łukasz Tomasz Milewski, who I never met, but I miss very dearly. My mom always talks about how much of an amazing brother you were. We were so sad you had to go so soon and so young, but I'll love you forever and you'll never be forgotten.
and my uncle, Paul Edward Jeffers. 20 years later, we are still reminded of you and think of you every day. We love you and we miss you.
Patricia Mary Fagan.
Ivan Krillos Fairbanks Barbosa.
Keith George Fairbairn.
Sandra Fajardo Smith.
Charles S. Falkenberg.
Dana Falkenberg.
Zoe Falkenberg.
Jamie L. Fallon.
William F. Fallon.
William Lawrence Fallon Jr.
Anthony J. Fallone Jr.
Dolores Bridget Finelli.
Robert John Fangman.
John Joseph Fanning.
Kathleen Ann Farragher.
Thomas James Farino.
Nancy C. Dolaziski Farley.
Paige Marie Farley Hackle.
Elizabeth Ann Farmer.
Douglas John Farnham.
John Gerard Farrell.
John W. Farrell.
Terrence Patrick Farrell.
Joseph D. Farley.
Thomas Patrick Farley.
Saeed Abdul Fattah.
Christopher Edward Fawnin.
Wendy R. Faulkner.
Shannon Marie Fava.
Bernard D. Favuza.
Robert Fazio Jr.
Ronald Carl Fazio Sr.
William M. Feehan.
Francis Jude Feely.
Garth Aaron Feeney.
Sean Bernard Fegan.
Lee S. Failing.
Peter Adam Fiedelberg.
Alan D. Feinberg.
Rosa Marie Feliciano.
And my uncle Jimmy Riches, forever in our hearts. God bless America.
And my brother Jerome Mark Patrick Dominguez. No one could really take you away from us, and you've been with us every moment since. You'd be really proud of your nephew and niece, and we love you very much.
Edward P. Felt.
Edward Thomas Fergus Jr.
George J. Ferguson III.
J. Joseph Ferguson.
Henry Fernandez.
Judy Hazel Santillan Fernandez.
Julio Fernandez.
Elisa Giselle Farina.
Anne Marie Celerin Ferreira.
Robert John Ferris.
David Francis Ferrugio.
Louis V. Fersini Jr.
Michael David Ferrugio.
Bradley James Fetchett.
Jennifer Louise Fialco.
Kristen Nicole Fidel.
Amelia V. Fields.
Samuel Fields.
Alexander Milan Filipov.
Michael Bradley Finnegan.
Timothy J. Finnerty.
Michael C. Fiore.
Stephen J. Fiorelli.
Paul M. Fiore.
John.
And to live up to their goodness and to stand guard over this democracy. We still work here. We still remember here. And we still uphold our values here. With clear heads and fearless hearts. Thank you, and may God protect the United States of America.
Ladies and gentlemen, please stand for God Bless America.
I invite you again to join me in prayer. O holy God, as we come to a conclusion of this observance of this day, remind us to build up what has been torn down, to repair what is broken, overcome hate with love, and be a true instrument of peace. Through this and through you, O God, we can live in a way that your love is a reflection through us unto others. May we carry this comfort of remembrance today for these great Americans, and also the torch of unity through your peace and love. We pray this in the holy name. Amen.
Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes today's ceremony. Thank you for joining us this morning. The memorial is open at this time until 3 p.m.
Colleen Frazier.
Andrew Sonny Garcia.
Our beautiful loved one, Jeremy Logan Glick.
Kristen Osterholm White Gould.
Lauren Catuzzi Grandcolas and our unborn child.
Wanda Anita Green. My dad, Donald Freeman Green.
My sister, Linda Christine Grunland. My beloved brother and son, Richard Jerry Guadagno.
My brother-in-law, First Officer Leroy Homer Jr.
Toshia Kuga.
My mother and flight attendant, Cece Ross Lyles.
My grandmother, Hilda Marson.
Waleska Martinez.
My sister, Nicole Miller.
Louis Joseph Nackey II.
Donald Arthur Peterson. Jean Hoadley Peterson. Mark David Rothenberg. Christine Ann Snyder.
My dad, John Talagnani.
Honor Elizabeth Wayneo.
My cousin, Debbie Jacobs Welsh.
"20 years ago, the world watched in horror as a terrorist attacks unfolded at the World Trade Center, the Pentagon, and in this field near Shanksville. On that day, my vision here at this holy site was one of a lone fire engine with its crew at the ready, for potential rescue and firefighting. Those first responders were shadowed by smoke rising from the impact zone into the nearby forest of the hemlock trees bordering this field. Now, my thoughts at the moment was that this was no longer a common field. It was traveled by so many who lived in this area, but this field was now sacred ground and common no more. So how did this vision of tragedy turn into a memory of complete victory? A wife of a fellow Los Angeles firefighter, Susie Bird, made a quilt, and then she asked Minnie to place a written message on the patches of that quilt. When I was given the pen, I recollected the vision that I had seen on September the 11th, 2001, and I wrote, "A common field one day, a field of honor forever." Now, these simple words caught the attention of one of the archivists who collected many thoughts that were sent here to this beautiful memorial. These words became the preamble for the mission statement that has guided and processed for permanently memorializing the 40 passengers and crew of Flight 93 over the past 20 years. Now, please, hear these words once again. A common field one day, a field of honor forever. May all who visit this place remember the collective acts of courage and sacrifice of the passengers and crew. Revere this hallowed ground as the final resting place of those heroes, and reflect on the power of individuals who chose to make a difference. Peace be with you.
Thank you, Chief Ruda. Your eloquent words have truly helped to define our understanding of this hallowed ground, sir. Thank you. Once again, our sincere appreciation to Mr. Hantman, all of our family readers, and finally, bell ringers Kevin Husek and Christian Boyd. This nation relies upon the men and women of our military for our protection. We owe them a debt of gratitude which truly can never be repaid for their sacrifices they and their families have made in preserving this great nation. I would like to acknowledge the men and women currently serving in our nation's military and all of our veterans who have so bravely served this country. Assisting with today's observance are 40 sailors from USS Somerset, named for Somerset County, where Flight 93 crashed. She is one of 3 ships that remember the tragic events of September 11th, along with USS Arlington and USS New York. Thank you, sailors, for being with us this morning. It is a great honor to introduce Captain John Kurtz, Commanding Officer, USS Somerset. Captain Kurtz grew up in Pennsylvania and graduated from the Naval Academy in 1996. Before commanding the Somerset, he served as a naval flight officer and as the executive officer at USS Nimitz. Please join me in welcoming Captain John Kurtz.
Virtus per adversa. Courage through adversity. That is the motto of USS Somerset and the reason we gather here today. To honor a remarkable act of courage by 40 strangers in the face of unimaginable adversity. Good morning, families and friends of the heroes of Flight 93. Vice President Harris, Mr. Emhoff, Governor Wolf, former President Bush, Mrs. Bush, Secretary Holland, Mr. Felt, Mr. Clark, and Chief Ruda. It is one of the highest honors of my life to be here representing the nearly 435 United States sailors and Marines currently serving aboard USS Somerset. Courage through adversity, a motto rooted in heroic action 20 years ago in the skies above us, means a lot to our crew. The story of Flight 93 is one of 40 people brought together by circumstance, most of whom knew no one on board, banding together in a time of crisis. I could think of no greater act of service, no higher calling than prioritizing the lives of others when one's very existence is at stake. Defying comprehension, these unsuspecting people, suddenly thrust into an extraordinary situation, acted with complete selflessness in defense of cherished national symbols, important beacons to the world, and countless nameless faces below. On September 10, 2001, it may have been impossible to imagine, and yet we find ourselves here today in a quiet Pennsylvania field, reverently remembering such a selfless act. The Department of Defense's theme for this anniversary is Educate and Remember. Aboard Somerset, we take this responsibility very seriously. Every month, we gather our newly arrived sailors to help them adjust to ship life. This is their introduction to the crew and ours to them. In recent years, many sailors reporting aboard were not yet in kindergarten or even born on that day the world stood still in 2001. This fact alone drives us to educate and remember, as we must recount to a fresh group of faces the story of our ship's namesake. We begin by repeating the ship's motto, pointing out to these young men and women who have no memory of that day that they serve on a ship that still means so much to so many Americans. They are presented with their duty. Join Team Somerset in rising above adversity, and together, as a crew, carry on the legacy of those 40 heroes. It is our job to continue defending those ideals for which they sacrificed. For their path to heroism was uninvited and unrequested. When those passengers and crew members boarded Flight 93 20 years ago, they assumed it was just another flight, to or from vacation, or simply part of a day's work. Adversity took them by surprise. But in response, they joined together and fought back. They put others ahead of themselves, a testament to service and sacrifice. This is what we live for on board U.S. Somerset. Strangers banding together in terms of service and sacrifice. We on USS Somerset have a distinct advantage against adversity compared to those. We know it's coming. We will find ourselves in the enemy's sights, in the line of fire, standing between our country and those who would do her harm. We owe it to those 40 heroes to be ready. They deserve nothing less than our utmost effort to build on their example. I am proud to report that the sailors and Marines of USS Somerset, some of whom are with us today, are ready to put others ahead of themselves. While Somerset's official motto honors the legacy of those individuals who mustered their courage in the face of adversity on that fateful morning, painted on the ship's hangar door, the phrase uttered in the moment of their heroic struggle reflects the inspirational actions of those heroes and serves as a stark reminder and masterful motivator for Team Somerset. Towering over the crew in times of peace and conflict alike, these words remind us all of sacrifice, service, and the call to rise above adversity. I am humbled to repeat those words today as USS Somerset honors the heroes of Flight 93 and the loved ones left behind by their sacrifice. So I will end as I end all of my addresses to the crew. Team Somerset, let's roll!
Ladies and gentlemen, I think our nation is in truly incredible hands. Having gotten to know the captain and the sailors of the Somerset and all throughout Somerset County over the last couple of days, Captain, you truly have made this event even more memorable. So, sir, thank you again for your service. God bless you, and it's so great to have you and your sailors here today. Thank you. We are honored today also by the presence of many elected officials from all levels of government. Among them, U.S. Senators Bob Casey, Pat Toomey, Congressman John Joyce, State Senator Pat Stefano, and representing the incredible, beautiful people of Somerset County, a group I work with so often, Commissioners Gerald Walker, Colleen Dawson, and Pamela Tokar-Ickes. For everyone, we truly appreciate you being with us here today. On September 11th, 2001, Governor Tom Ridge arrived here to survey the crash site. 1 week later, he met with family members when they first visited this field of honor. In the following days, President Bush summoned him to Washington to lead this country's homeland security efforts. Governor Ridge wishes he could be with us this morning, as the families of Flight 93 mean so much to him. When I spoke to him just a few short days ago, he asked me to remind everyone that the kindness, generosity, and compassion displayed by all Americans after September 11th remain vital to our nation's resilience and security. Governor Ridge, you are indeed with us in spirit, and thank you so much for your support over these many years. For truly, in the past 20 years, there's no question that the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania has been deeply involved in honoring the heroes of Flight 93. That involvement has been vital, truly vital, to the creation of this memorial. Joining us now, a Pennsylvania native and the 47th governor of this great state of Pennsylvania. Everyone, please help me welcome Governor Tom Wolf.
Thank you, Stephen. Thank you, everyone, for being here. And thank you for honoring me, allowing me to be here today. Pennsylvania is indeed proud to have been involved with these memorial services and with everything to honor the people who gave so much to all of us on that day. But every time I visit this memorial, I am struck by the solemnity of the place. Even more, I'm struck by the compassion and the heart of the people who built this place of remembrance. The people who visit to share stories of love and of grief, and the people who care for this space and the visitors who come here day in and day out. Every year, we remember the lives lost to violent terrorist attacks on September 11th, 2001. This year, we're commemorating the 20th anniversary of this tragedy. And just like we do every year, our nation will come together to mourn and to remember. We remember our first responders and all those who went into danger on September 11th and in the days that followed to protect others. We remember the extraordinary acts of bravery and compassion committed by ordinary people on that day. And here in Pennsylvania, we particularly remember the actions of the 40 passengers and the crew on Flight 93 who fought back and who sacrificed themselves to save the lives of strangers. This story and this place remind us each day of what it means to be an American. In times of strife, we Americans, we come together. We comfort each other. We protect each other. And we stand up for each other. This memorial is a powerful reminder of what we have lost, but it's also a powerful reminder of the strength of the American spirit and of what we can do when we come together for the greater good of each of us. September 11th, 2001 was one of our nation's darkest days. And now, 20 years later, we look back and remember the people who brought light to that darkness and who gave us hope when we were all sunk in despair, who reminded us how far we Americans can go to protect our fellow Americans. It's their example that each of us should strive to follow today and every day. Thank you very much.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see. 'Twas grace that taught my heart to feel, and grace my fears relieved. A precious gift that grace appeared. The hour I first believed. Toils and snares I have already come. His grace had brought
The National Park Service has enjoyed the support of several partners in establishing this amazing memorial. We are grateful, of course, to the families of Flight 93, the friends of Flight 93, the National Park Foundation, and to all of those who have helped make the memorial what it is today, 20 years after September 11th. It is my distinct pleasure to introduce Mr. Gordon Felt, the president of the families of Flight 93. He is the brother of passenger Edward Porter Felt and has long been the key spokesperson for the families. I've known Gordy for several years now, and I greatly admire his unwavering commitment to the Flight 93 National Memorial and to the 40 heroes. He has been an inspiration as well as a good friend to me and to so many of us here gathered today. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome Mr. Gordon Felt.
Madam Vice President, Second Gentleman, President and Mrs. Bush, Secretary Holland, Governor Wolf, Captain Kurtz, Ambassador Kibben, Steve, Superintendent Clark, distinguished guests, families, friends, ambassadors, and all that join us today, near or far. I welcome you to the 20th Remembrance Ceremony of September 11th, 2001, here at the Flight 93 National Memorial. To the men and women that serve aboard the USS Somerset here today, and all of those active duty members and veterans in attendance, near and far, you honor us with your presence. And we must never forget that there are thousands of your brethren gravely injured or that have lost their lives while serving or as a result of their service during these past 20 years. Their loss reminds us that September 11th was not a singular event, but a date that marked a cultural paradigm shift in our country and for freedom-loving people across the globe. To the families of Flight 93 here and at home, honoring a loved one, my heart goes out to you. Having lost a brother on September 11th, I too live with a grief that is deep, consuming, and always present. For those that lost loved ones in the terrorist attacks on our country 20 years ago today, you know that we can never move on, but that we must continue to move forward. On September 11th, 2001, we lost a total of 2,977 innocent souls. And that morning, more than 6,000 people were injured in the attack on our country. 2,606 died in the World Trade Center. 125 at the Pentagon. And 246 innocent people were murdered on the 4 hijacked planes, 40 of which were on Flight 93, brought down here in a field just outside of Shanksville, Pennsylvania, as our heroes fought to overcome the evil brought to our shores that morning. To date, an additional 2,000 first responders that took part in the immediate rescue and continued recovery efforts have died from related illnesses. And with every month, we continue to lose more. The ripple effect of September 11th is unfathomable. There are still many questions to be answered about the day, facts to be declassified and released, and justice to be served. So much of September 11th involved pain, loss, and terror. Our lives were never to be the same. And yet, from the ashes of the day, stories of heroism and extraordinary courage emerged, providing hope to a world adrift in fear and confusion. First responders running into burning buildings with little regard for their own safety, while citizens inside those buildings refused to run from danger so that they could offer assistance and comfort to those less able, surely knowing that their decision would cost them all but their honor. And here in the skies over southwestern Pennsylvania, a group of 40 individuals, mostly strangers, when becoming aware of what was taking place on the ground that morning, found the courage to band together at a moment's notice, without regard for political, religious, professional, or cultural differences. Our 40, under extreme conditions, were able to change the course of history, averting the potential of our final image that fateful day, being the Capitol dome, collapsed and on fire, the greatest symbol of our democracy in ruins. As the personification of that symbol, our heroes embraced the tenets of democracy that no expression of terrorism will ever extinguish. E pluribus unum. Out of many, one. Our heroes united. They formulated a plan when confronted by a great evil. They prayed. They voted on a course of action, and then they struck. Though in the process they lost their lives, there is no question that they won the first battle in this current war on terrorism. 35 minutes, 9:28 to 10:03 a.m. From the initial terrorist attack on Flight 93 until the moment the plane came down on our sacred ground. A lifetime. A moment. Forever. Yesterday. Here on the ground, first responders, aware of what was taking place in New York, at the Pentagon, and in the midst of fear and uncertainty, instinctively reacted to the horror that was brought to their rural community in a way that has forever altered their lives. These proud men and women of Somerset County and the surrounding region demonstrated everything that is awesome about the United States of America. Terrorism met rural America, proud, strong, determined. The relationship our families and our nation has forged with this local community is extraordinary. To our extended family here in the Somerset County region, you will forever have our gratitude. You have embraced us and the story of our loved ones in a selfless, fiercely protective fashion, even as you continue to move forward, carrying the pain and anguish thrust upon your community 20 years ago. Recently, I was listening to former Congressman Trey Gowdy discussing the ultimate sacrifices made by our men and women in uniform. During his remarks, I was struck by a common theme that I do not recall highlighted in prior years. It was a theme that I felt strongly was consistent with the story of the heroes of Flight 93 and all those we lost on September 11th. I experienced a moment of clarity that brought my understanding of heroism and of sacrifice to an uncomfortable reality, moving me to question who we are as a society. What struck such a nerve was not the annual reminder to honor and remember the thousands of lives ripped from the embrace of their families the morning of September 11th, 2001, including the 40 heroes of Flight 93. But rather the question to be considered is, are we worthy of their sacrifice? Are we worthy? Do we as individuals, communities, and as a country conduct ourselves in a manner that would make those that sacrificed so much and fought so hard on September 11th proud of who we have become? Do we share the same willingness to sacrifice for others in little ways as well as large? To act when necessary for no other reason than to accomplish a noble goal, egoless, and with no other motivation than to do what is right? Do we cherish the hard-earned freedoms that we enjoyed, secured every generation by those willing to stand toe-to-toe with anyone or any country willing to steal them away? The real question that we must all ask ourselves is, have we as a society moved on and left the hard-earned lessons of September 11th behind? Have we become desensitized to what really happened that fateful morning? Have we diminished the courageous actions of these brave men and women, these heroes we honor today at the Flight 93 National Memorial, as well as those in New York City and at the Pentagon, by relegating their stories to the history books? As a country, we shouldn't seek to move on, but rather let us dedicate ourselves to moving forward, honoring and remembering the sacrifices made on September 11th, the lessons we learned, remembering the names, the individuals, and the collective actions of so many that day. Let us be worthy of the selfless sacrifices that were made. Let us remember who we became on September 12th. In the aftermath of September 11th, we saw beyond our differences so that in unity we could survive the devastation of the day. E pluribus unum. Out of many, we became one. That is the inspiration of September 11th. Whether it was in the air or on the ground that morning, heroism was revealed. History was made, and the course of our lives were changed forever. The path we follow is up to us. Let us strive to be worthy of those we lost that morning, our 40 heroes, our loved ones, and the thousands of other innocent lives extinguished that day and in the aftermath of September 11th. E pluribus unum. Thank you.
Thank you, Gordy. An enduring moment in the days after September 11th occurred when President George W. Bush used a bullhorn to speak to firefighters at Ground Zero in New York. His words provided sorely needed encouragement to a grieving country. A common thread of heroism running through each of the 3 attack sites on September 11th was the devotion to duty shown by our first responders. They made the nation proud then, and they continue to do that now. Thank you to all of our first responders across these great United States, for we are truly grateful for your service. I'm greatly honored now to present our next speaker, the 43rd President of the United States of America, George W. Bush. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Accompanying him today is First Lady Laura Bush, who occupies a special place in the hearts and families of Flight 93, for on September 17th, Mrs. Bush traveled here to offer her condolences and to those of America to the families and passengers of Flight 93. President Bush is fondly remembered by everyone involved in the effort to commemorate the heroes of Flight 93 for signing the act that created this national memorial on September 24th, 2002. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the 43rd President of the United States, George W. Bush.
Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you very much. Laura and I are honored to be with you. Madam Vice President, Vice President Cheney, Governor Wolf, Secretary Holland, and distinguished guests. 20 years ago, we all found in different ways, in different places, but all at the same moment, that our lives would be changed forever. The world was loud with carnage and sirens, and then quiet with missing voices that would never be heard again. These lives remain precious to our country and infinitely precious to many of you. Today we remember your loss, we share your sorrow, and we honor the men and women you have loved so long and so well. For those too young to recall that clear September day, it is hard to describe the mix of feelings we experienced. There was horror at the scale of destruction, and awe at the bravery and kindness that rose to meet it. There was shock at the audacity of evil, and gratitude for the heroism and decency that opposed it. In the sacrifice of the first responders, in the mutual aid of strangers, in the solidarity of grief and grace, the actions of an enemy revealed the spirit of a people, and we were proud of our wounded nation. In these memories, the passengers and crew of Flight 93 must always have an honored place. Here, the intended targets became the instruments of rescue, and many who are now alive owe a vast, unconscious debt to the defiance displayed in the skies above this field. It would be a mistake to idealize the experience of those terrible events. All that many people could initially see was the brute randomness of death. All that many could feel was unearned suffering. All that many could hear was God's terrible silence. There are many who still struggle with a lonely pain that cuts deep within. In those fateful hours, we learned other lessons as well. We saw that Americans were vulnerable, but not fragile. That they possess a core of strength that
America.
Andrew James Knox.
Thomas Patrick Knox.
Rebecca Lee Kabori.
Deborah A. Kobus.
Gary Edward Keckler.
Frank J. Costner.
Ryan Cohart.
Vanessa Lynn Shobolo Kolpak.
Irina Kolpakova.
Suzanne Rose Kondratenko.
Abdullah Kone.
Bon Suk Ku.
Dorota Kopitsko.
Scott Michael Kopitko.
Bohan George Kostich,
Danielle Kasulis,
David P. Kovalchin,
John J. Kren,
William Edward Krukowski,
Ludmila Kasita,
Toshia Kuge,
Shekhar Kumar,
Kenneth Bruce Kumpel,
Frederick Kuo Jr.,
Patricia A. Corris,
Nauka Kushitani,
Thomas Joseph Kuvakis,
Victor Kawarkai,
Raymond Kui Fekwak,
Angela Reed Kite,
Andrew Lacourte,
Carol Ann LaPlante,
Jeffrey G. Latouche,
Catherine L. Labori,
Amarnath Latchman,
Ganesh K. Ladkat,
James Patrick Ladley,
Joseph A. LaFalce,
Jeanette Louise Lafond Medahino,
David James LaForge,
and my grandfather, Philip T. Hayes. Even though I never had the chance to meet you, you will always be my hero. I've heard so many amazing stories about you, and I am blessed to have such a great role model as my grandpa. I miss and love you so much. You are forever in our hearts.
and my aunt Harde K.C. Parbu. My family and I miss her so much. She was always filled with so much joy and cared for her loved ones. I am honored to have known her. We truly cherish all the great memories we shared with her. We love you, Auntie Chani. To all the victims and their families, I sincerely hope today you all can find...
I was proud to lead an amazing, resilient, united people. When it comes to the unity of America, those days seem distant from our own. Malign force seems at work in our common life that turns every disagreement into an argument, and every argument into a clash of cultures. So much of our politics has become a naked appeal to anger, fear, and resentment. That leaves us worried about our nation and our future together. I come without explanations or solutions. I can only tell you what I've seen. On America's day of trial and grief, I saw millions of people instinctively grab for a neighbor's hand and rally to the cause of one another. That is the America I know. At a time when religious bigotry might have flowed freely, I saw Americans reject prejudice and embrace people of Muslim faith. That is the nation I know. At a time when nativism could have stirred hatred and violence against people perceived as outsiders, I saw Americans reaffirm their welcome to immigrants and refugees. That is the nation I know. At a time when some viewed the rising generation as individualistic and decadent, I saw young people embrace an ethic of service and rise to selfless action. That is the nation I know. This is not mere nostalgia. It is the truest version of ourselves. It is what we have been and what we can be again. 20 years ago, terrorists chose a random group of Americans on a routine flight to be collateral damage in a spectacular act of terror. The 33 passengers and 7 crew of Flight 93 could have been any group of citizens selected by fate. In a sense, they stood in for us all. The terrorists soon discovered that a random group of Americans is an exceptional group of people facing an impossible circumstance. They comforted their loved ones by phone, braced each other for action, and defeated the designs of evil. These Americans were brave, strong, and united in ways that shocked the terrorists. but should not surprise any of us. This is the nation we know. And whenever we need hope and inspiration, we can look to the skies and remember. God bless.
Thank you, Mr. President, for those beautiful, insightful words. You know, President Bush and Mrs. Bush have visited here several times, and we are delighted, of course, to have them with us here today, now that the memorial has been completed. The design for this memorial, which so beautifully frames this site, is the work of Paul Murdoch Architects. A deeply felt thank you to Paul and Melina Murdoch, who are with us here today, and to their entire team for envisioning the memorial that has literally sculpted the landscape in an unforgettable manner, and which will be visited by millions of people for generations to come. Once again, thank you to Paul and Melina and your entire team. Thank you, sir. How could we not embrace, to my left, the incredible men and women of the President's own United States Marine Band? Formed in 1798, it's America's oldest continuously active professional musical organization. Think about that. Its mission is to perform for the United States President and the Commandant of the Marine Corps. We are truly privileged to enjoy this national treasure. Ladies and gentlemen, please once again join me in thanking and appreciating the incredible President's own. Thank you, Colonel. At this time, I am proud to welcome the Secretary of the United States Department of the Interior, Deb Haaland, the 54th person entrusted with that responsibility. She leads a department which employs more than 70,000 people, whose mission it is to protect and manage this country's natural resources, as well as our beautiful and absolutely powerful cultural heritage. Would you all please join me in welcoming Secretary Deb Haaland.
Thank you all so much. President Bush, thank you for your inspiring words. Madam Vice President, very honored to be here with you. Families, friends, active duty service personnel, thank you so much for the opportunity to join you all on this somber anniversary. 20 years ago, I was waking up to get my first grader ready for school and was stunned by the news on the radio. I rushed to turn on the TV and watch the imagery in disbelief. Like many parents, I nervously took my child to school. The pickup line was longer than usual that day. I know parents just wanted to hold their children close as soon as they could. Instead of being in a rush to get to their next event, soccer practice, or home for homework, parents, students, teachers, and school support staff joined hands around the school for a moment of silence. We mourned together. Every year on this day, we remember those we lost. We remember the first responders who ran in when everyone was running out. We remember the emergency crews who helped in the aftermath of that fateful day. We remember where we were and how we felt. And on this hallowed ground, we remember the heroes who made the ultimate sacrifice to save others. We honor their families, and we recognize the selfless patriotism they demonstrated on that September morning 20 years ago. It is with the support of the families of Flight 93, the Flight 93 Advisory Commission, the Flight 93 Memorial Task Force, Friends of Flight 93, and the National Park Foundation that this memorial serves as an enduring reminder of their bravery. There's no way to know how many lives these heroes saved, but we show our gratitude by visiting this place, gathering with loved ones, and most importantly, building a country where their children and grandchildren can thrive. Building a country of which they would be proud. We at the Interior Department will live up to that sacred responsibility by being good stewards of this memorial for generations to come. I appreciate everyone who works so hard every day, including our National Park Service employees and the volunteers, to care for this land, to honor it for those who were lost, so that we may never forget their sacrifice. My child is grown now. Many like them have little, if any, memory of that day when our nation came together in grief. But thanks to this memorial, they and other children will know the story of what happened here. A set of brave individuals who made the ultimate sacrifice for our country. Their story will live on. To continue our remembrance, it is my honor and privilege to introduce our esteemed Vice President, Kamala Harris.
Thank you. Good morning. Good morning. President Bush, it is my honor to be on this stage with you, and Mrs. Laura Bush, and thank you, President Bush, for your words. They are as resonant today as the words you spoke 20 years ago. Governor Tom Wolf, Superintendent Stephen Clark, Madam Secretary, and the President of the Families of Flight 93, Gordon Feld. It is truly an honor to be with all of you at this field of honor. We are joined today, of course, by the family and friends of the 40 passengers and crew members of Flight 93. And we stand today with all those who lost someone on September 11th, 2001, and in the aftermath of the attacks. So many in our nation, too many in our nation, have deeply felt the passage of time these last 20 years. Every birthday your loved one missed, every holiday, every time her favorite team won or his favorite song came on the radio, every time you've tucked in your children or dropped them off at college, you have felt every day, every week, and every year that has passed these 20 years. So please know your nation sees you, and we stand with you, and we support you. We are gathered today on hallowed ground, at this place that has been sanctified by sacrifice, to honor the heroism that the 40 passengers and crew members showed in the face of grave terrorism. I remember when I first learned about what happened on that fateful flight. What happened on Flight 93 told us then, and it still tells us, so much about the courage of those on board who gave everything they possibly could, about the resolve of the first responders who risked everything, and about the resilience of the American people. On this 20th anniversary, on this solemn day of remembrance, we must challenge ourselves, yes, to look back, to remember, for the sake of our children, for the sake of their children. And for that reason, we must also look forward. We must also look toward the future. Because in the end, I do believe that is what the 40 were fighting for. Their future and ours. On the days that followed, September 11th, 2001, we were all reminded that unity is possible in America. We were reminded also that unity is imperative in America. It is essential to our shared prosperity, to our national security, and to our standing in the world. And by unity, I don't mean uniformity. We had differences of opinion in 2001, as we do in 2021. And I believe that in America, our diversity is our strength. At the same time, we saw after 9/11 how fear can be used to sow division in our nation. As Sikh and Muslim Americans were targeted because of how they looked or how they worshiped. But we also saw what happens when so many Americans, in the spirit of our nation, stand in solidarity with all people and their fellow American, with those who experience violence and discrimination, when we stand together. And looking back, we remember the vast majority of Americans were unified in purpose to help families heal, to help communities recover, to defend our nation, and to keep us safe. In a time of outright terror, we turned toward each other. In the face of a stranger, we saw a neighbor and a friend. That time reminded us the significance and the strength of our unity as Americans, and that it is possible in America. So, moments from now, we will leave this hallowed place, still carrying with us the pain of this loss, this tremendous loss, and still, the future will continue to unfold. We will face new challenges, challenges that we could not have seen 20 years ago. We will seize opportunities that were at one time unimaginable. And we know that what lies ahead is not certain. It is never certain. It has never been. But I know this: if we do the hard work of working together as Americans, if we remain united in purpose, we will be prepared for whatever comes next. The 40 passengers and crew members of Flight 93, as we all know, they didn't know each other. Most of them didn't know each other. They were different people from different places. They were on that particular flight for different reasons. But they did not focus on what may separate us. No, they focused on what we all share, on the humanity we all share. In a matter of minutes, in the most dire of circumstances, the 40 responded as one. They fought for their own lives and to save the lives of countless others at our nation's capital. After today, it is my hope and prayer that we continue to honor their courage, their conviction, with our own, that we honor their unity by strengthening our common bonds, by strengthening our global partnerships, and by always living out our highest ideals. This work will not be easy. It never has been. And it will take all of us believing in who we are as a nation. And it will take all of us going forth to work together. Thank you all. May God bless you, and may God bless America. Thank you.
Thank you again, Madam Vice President. Beautiful words. Before this national memorial was created, local residents, calling themselves ambassadors, took responsibility to watch over this hallowed ground and welcome visitors from near and far. Next year in January, we will mark the 20th anniversary of that group. I would like to thank everyone who has given their time as a Flight 93 ambassador over the years, as you are, in many ways, the heart and soul of this very special place. Thank you all. Folks, it's literally over 10,000 hours a year by our ambassadors every day of the year, including those bitter, cold Western Pennsylvania February mornings. You will see, yes ma'am, our ambassadors. They're truly incredible people, and again, they were here since day one. As we close, if I may, today I am wearing a watch worn by my great-uncle William Joseph Clark, who was killed in the First World War. I wear it just 3 times a year. Memorial Day, Veterans Day, and September 11th. It is a cherished heirloom and an instrument which marks the passage of time. 20 years. The amount of time since September 11, 2001 is but a brief span in the history of this great nation. Time. We will always remember what happened more than 200 years ago at Independence Hall, where our country was born and our Constitution was signed. Time. We will always remember what happened more than 150 years ago at countless fields when our country fought an internal conflict from which it emerged even stronger and even more than united than ever. Time. We will always remember what happened more than 100 years ago when our nation joined the struggle to make the world safe for democracy and secured voting rights for women here at home. Time. We will always remember what happened more than 50 years ago across this country when brave citizens risked their lives to make our nation live up to its founding principles. Time. And undoubtedly, we shall always remember what happened 20 years ago today, when an attack on our nation brought forth an inspiring display of courage from 40 passengers and crew members aboard Flight 93. Again, confronted by an unprecedented situation, they drew upon reserves of inner strength, acted and saved many lives. Time. As the years go by, the passage of time will only strengthen the importance of their story and this place in the history of our nation. Let us never forget what they did here. Let us always remember the lives lost that day in New York, at the Pentagon, and here in this field of honor. Among the more than 400 sites cared for by the National Park Service and many of our sacred historic places. This hallowed ground next to us, the resting place of the 40 heroes of Flight 93. Ladies and gentlemen, your loved ones is such a place. It too is one of the most important sites in our country, a place where brave men and women made history and shaped the future. When the events of September 11th have passed from living memory, this memorial, created through the tireless efforts of so many, will allow future generations to remember the inspiring story of Flight 93. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, we truly are grateful to all of you for making and taking time on this special, special day to join us in remembering and honoring the 40 heroes whose names are inscribed on that wall. To those around the world, to everyone with us here today, and our cherished, cherished family members, thank you all so very, very much. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, please remain seated until the ceremonial gate has been opened.
land of the noble free. Thy name I love. I love thy rocks and rills, thy woods and templed hills. My heart with rapture thrills like that above. My country, 'tis of thee, sweet land of liberty, of thee I see. Land where my fathers died, land of the Pilgrim's pride, from every mountain side. Let freedom ring, let freedom, let freedom ring.
Now, the families of Flight 93 are invited to the Wall of Names and the sacred ground for a private wreath-laying ceremony. Thank you for attending today's service.
Manuel de Mojica Jr.
Kleber Rolanda Molina.
Manuel de Jesus Molina.
Carl Molinaro.
Justin John Molisani Jr.
Brian Patrick Monaghan.
Franklin Monahan.
John Gerard Monahan.
Kristen Lee Montanaro.
Craig Montano.
Michael G. Montesi.
Carlos Alberto Beto Montoya.
Antonio de Jesus Montoya Valdez.
Cheryl Ann Moniak.
Thomas Carlo Moody.
Sharon Moore.
Krishna V. Morthy.
Laura Lee DeFazio Morabito.
Abner Morales.
Carlos Manuel Morales.
Paula E. Morales.
Sonia Mercedes Morales Papalo.
Gerard P. Moran Jr.
John Christopher Moran.
John Michael Moran.
Kathleen Moran.
Lindsay Stapleton Morehouse.
George William Morell.
Stephen P. Morello.
Vincent S. Morello.
Yvette Nicole Marino.
Dorothy Morgan.
Richard J. Morgan.
Nancy Morgenstern.
Sane More.
Blanca Robertino Moracho Moracho.
Leonel Hermano Moracho Moracho.
Dennis Gerard Moroni.
And my aunt, Daphne Paletzis. Saza, losing you was a nightmare, and we mourn every laugh, every smile, and every story that now we will never be able to share with you. In their place, an emptiness that will never be filled. Simply put, you were the best person we ever knew, and we were so lucky to have you in our lives. Every moment was a joy, each memory a gift that we will always treasure. And for as dark as that day was, to know you was to know a love and a light that shines so much brighter.
And to my grandfather, Battalion Chief John Joseph Jack Fanning of Hazmat Operations, FDNY. My hero I never got to meet. I know so much about you because you're still talked about every single day. Please continue to watch over Daddy, Uncle Jeremy, Aunt Jackie, the rest of the family, and you are so missed by all of us and may be gone, but will never be forgotten. I love you always, and I'm so proud to be your granddaughter. Rest in peace, Grandpa.
Lynn Irene Morris.
Odessa V. Morris.
Seth Allen Morris.
Steve Morris.
Christopher Martel Morrison.
Ferdinand V. Marone.
William David Moskal.
Brian A. Moss.
Marco Matroni.
Cynthia Motis Wilson.
Yuri A. Muchinsky.
Jude Joseph Musa.
Peter Mudis.
Damian O'Neill Mowat.
Teddington H. Moy.
Christopher Michael Mozillo.
Stephen Vincent Muldery.
Richard T. Modanley Jr.
Michael D. Mullen.
Dennis Michael Mulligan.
Peter James Mulligan.
Michael Joseph Mullen.
James Donald Munhall.
Nancy Muniz.
Francisco Eladio Muñez.
Carlos Mario Munoz.
Teresa Munson.
Robert Michael Murdoch.
Cesar Augusto Murillo.
Mark A. Murillo.
Brian Joseph Murphy.
Charles Anthony Murphy.
Christopher W. Murphy.
Edward Charles Murphy.
James F. Murphy IV.
James Thomas Murphy.
Kevin James Murphy.
Patrick Jude Murphy.
Patrick Sean Murphy.
Raymond E. Murphy.
And my grandfather, James Anthony Trentini, and my grandmother, Mary Barbara Trentini, We miss you and love you so much. We wish we had more time with you, and I know you're looking over us every day. We love you.
And my brother, Manuel Gomez Jr., Manny as he was known, to family and friends, loved piloting his airline, his plane, riding his motorcycles, scuba diving, and loved being in field service with his friends. He was a adventurous, loving, and a God-fearing man. We all miss Manny, remember him, especially Mom, who's watching today from Puerto Rico, his two nephews, Stephen and Michael. But most importantly, he's remembered by Jehovah God, as are all the victims. And we have faith in the promise he has and mentioned in the book of John, chapter 5, verse 28 and 29. Hasta la resurrección, mi hermano.
Robert Eddie Murphy, Jr.
John Joseph Murray.
John Joseph Murray.
Susan D. Murray.
Valerie Victoria Murray.
Richard Todd Myrie.
Louis J. Nackey II.
Robert B. Nagel.
Mildred Rose Naiman.
Takuya Nakamura.
Alexander John Robert Napier.
Frank Joseph Naples III.
John Philip Napolitano.
Catherine Ann Nardella.
Mario Nardone, Jr.
Monica K. Narula.
Sean M. Nasani.
Narendra Nath.
Karen Susan Navarro.
Joseph M. Navis.
Francis Joseph Nazareo.
Glenroy I. Neblett.
Raymond Marcus Neblett.
Jerome O. Ned.
Lawrence F. Nadell.
Luke G. Nee.
Pete Negron.
Lori Ann Nera.
Ann N. Nelson.
David William Nelson.
Ginger Risco Nelson.
James A. Nelson.
Michelle Ann Nelson.
Peter Allen Nelson.
Oscar Francis Nesbitt.
Gerard Terrence Nevins.
Renee Taltrop Newell.
Christopher C. Newton.
Christopher Newton Carter.
Nancy Ewan Nago.
And my younger brother, Michael Cameron Lynch. He was a wonderful son, brother, husband, and father. We miss him every day. I know you must be so proud, as I am, of your beautiful daughter, Caroline, your wonderful nephew, Paul, and your niece, Cassidy, who's a sergeant in the Army. We love you, Morty. You're always in our hearts. God bless America.
And my beloved husband, Derek James Statkavicus. Tyler Chase and I miss you and love you very much.
Ready? Kong Neguk Nigoyen.
Jody Tapedino Nichilo.
Kathleen Ann Nicosia.
Martin Stewart Niederer.
Alphonse Joseph Niedermeyer.
Frank John Niestat Jr.
Gloria Nieves.
Juan Nieves Jr.
Troy Edward Nilsson.
Paul Nimbley.
John Ballantine Niven.
Catherine McGarry Nowak.
Curtis Terrence Noel.
Michael A. Noth.
Jacqueline June Norton.
Robert Walter Noonan.
Daniela Rosalia Notaro.
Robert Grant Norton.
Soichi Numata.
Brian Christopher Navanti.
Jose Nunez.
Brian Nunez.
James A. Oakley.
Jeffrey Roger Nussbaum.
James P. O'Brien, Jr.
Dennis Patrick Oberg.
Scott J. O'Brien.
Michael P. O'Brien.
Daniel O'Callahan.
Timothy Michael O'Brien.
Diana J. O'Connor.
Dennis James O'Connor, Jr.
Richard J. O'Connor.
Keith Kevin O'Connor.
Marnie Pont O'Doherty.
Amy O'Doherty.
Takashi Ogawa.
Douglas E. Elschlager.
And my cousin, who was like a sister to me, Derelia Giovanna Mena. Your daughter, your sister, your mother, aunts, uncles, and many, many, many cousins miss you terribly. We hope to see you again one day. Siempre vivirás en nuestros corazones y nuestros pensamientos.
Albert Ogletree, and my hero, and my father, Donald H. Gregory. My dad was a gregarious yet sensitive man who had a great sense of humor and a deep love for his family and friends. He loved his job and his peers at Cantor Fitzgerald, but he knew how to come off the train, leaving work at work, and engage and connect with us. A few weeks before September 11th, he had a heart-to-heart talk with me about how he wanted to prioritize his health so that he could be there for my sister, brother, and I throughout our milestones of marriage and children. Although he wasn't here with us, he was never missing in our hearts. The legacy of his life lives on with all those who miss him, and now with his 5 grandchildren who will learn to love their Grandpa Don through shared stories. It is only with acts of kindness, charity, and love that we can negate the intentions of those who wanted to bring down this country, and this will be what we will teach our children. I am deeply grateful to all those who have served and sacrificed to protect our country, especially in Afghanistan, and to those who are still suffering from 9/11 related physical and mental illness. You are not forgotten or alone. I pray that we can once again be the country we were on September 12th. Dad, I love you and I miss you always.
Philip Paul Onibene.
John A. Oganoski.
James Andrew O'Grady.
Joseph J. Ogren.
Thomas G. O'Hagan.
Samuel Otis.
Patrick J. O'Keefe.
William O'Keefe.
Gerald Michael Alcott.
Gerard Thomas O'Leary.
Christine Ann Olander.
Linda Mary Oliva.
Edward K. Oliver.
Leah Elizabeth Oliver.
Eric Todd Olson.
Jeffrey James Olson.
Barbara K. Olson.
Maureen Lyons Olson.
Stephen John Olson.
Matthew Timothy O'Mahony.
Toshihiro Anda.
Seamus L. O'Neill.
John P. O'Neill.
Peter J. O'Neill, Jr.
Sean Gordon Corbett O'Neill.
Betty Ann Ong.
Michael C. Opperman.
Christopher T. Orgilowitz.
Margaret